Good morning. It's 8:30, and I'm going to call the Clay County Board of Commissioner meeting for September 24th, 2024 to order. First thing on the agenda is approval of the agenda.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Next is citizens to be heard. Do we have any citizens present who wish to address the commission on a topic that is not on the agenda? Steve, have we got anybody online?
We do not, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Next, approval of payment of bills and vouchers.
Move approval.
I'll second the motion.
Motion to second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. And approval of the minutes from September 10th.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion to second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, we have the sheriff. Didn't bring Chris with you?
He's in Colorado.
Oh,
Guess he thinks he needs a vacation every now and then.
well, he's got a tough boss. The sheriff's here to tell us about request approval for TCP software contract with the sheriff's office.
Yeah, good morning, and thanks for having me here this morning. Just request approval to sign a 5-year contract with TCP software. They run our Schedule Anywhere, which is our scheduling for the sheriff's office and the correctional center. By signing this contract, it's 5 years, we'd be locked into a price of $41.58 for 5 years, which is probably a good thing considering year one. If we just did an annual yearly contract with them, would be $45.73, and then after 5 years, it would raise to $66.96. So it would be a savings over the course of the 5 years. And if we do have to have additional licenses, that would be fine to do. They would just charge us $39.60 a year for the additional license.
Any questions for the sheriff?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the 5-year contract.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thanks, Sheriff. That was easy. Okay, next we have Brian Lunick, the Moorhead Public School Superintendent. Going to give us going to share information with us on the school capital project levy presentation. Good morning, Superintendent.
Morning. Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Okay, thanks for having me. I look forward to the opportunity to talk to you about our referendum here that's on the ballot on November 5th. If you do have any questions, feel free to ask them in the moment, and we can take those as we go. If you want to wait till the end, I'm good with that too. Or if I do that good of a job where you won't have any questions at the end, I'll be happy with that as well. Without further ado, we'll get started. I did have Brenda share with you the 3-hour version of our presentation today, so I hope that you're all right with that and comfortable sitting for 3 hours talking numbers and the actual why behind it. But ultimately, I think we did settle on sending you the 20-minute version, so we'll try to get through this a little bit quicker as well. At the rapid speed that the meeting was going, I might slow it down a little bit here. So anyway, on November, we have a capital projects levy referendum on the ballot in November, and just want to take you through the why behind where we are at. And in schools, we're funded based on our property value and our per pupil units. And you can see by this slide, there's two differing numbers on this slide. One is the number that is escalating in blue, and you can see how that number kind of moves upward and ticks upward at quite an alarming rate starting in around 2021. And then you can see the dotted orange line, which is the number we're currently at, and this is our per pupil payment based on our student count. And when you look at the number that's there based on inflation versus where we are in terms of actual numbers, you can see that equates to about a $9.5 million difference based on our 7,100, which would be almost now 7,300 pupils based on our opening number. So you see, currently, the formula is around $9.5 million behind based on inflation. I'm sure just like our district is struggling that way, I'm sure at the county and at the city level, it's much the same, trying to contain and trying to battle inflation as well. So this slide just shares where we're at in terms of our major source of revenue, which is from a state on a per pupil basis. So we look at our budget projections and we look 3 years out. So we're in current year. I'll always refer to the current year as fiscal year 25, which is the 24-25 school year, but it's actually, for our terms, fiscal year 25, and we run a July calendar to July 1 to June 30th calendar. I'm not sure what the county runs here, but I'm sure it's pretty similar. I don't think it's a calendar year, and maybe it is. I'm not honestly familiar. But if you look at the bottom, that's the key number that we want to be aware of. We have an unassigned fund balance, and that's at 2.23%. If we do nothing and we have no new revenue and we don't make any adjustments to our expenditures, you look out to fiscal year 26, 27, and 28, and by the time we would be at fiscal year 28, we would be in a deficit situation on our unassigned, and just by policy, our unassigned fund balance is supposed to be at 17%. And just to let you folks know, quietly over the last couple of years, we've, through attrition, have eliminated roughly 30 positions within our district quietly as people have left. However, with inflation at what it was and what it seemed, although it seems to be slowing down, we're still a little behind the 8 ball there. So we're trying to do something in terms of a combination of increase of revenue with a balance of our expenditures as well as we move forward. Looking, just to give you an example, and this isn't anybody to blame, this is just the situation we're in. We'll take you through some pretty big examples of where the district has a unfunded gap, and it's just the nature of what we're dealing with. So when we talk about our special ed program, we always often refer to as a special ed cross subsidy, and a cross subsidy is when the general fund's got to pick up the difference. And when you look at it here, we run about $25 million in expenses to run our special ed programming, and we collect a little over $15 million. So there's about a $9.6 million gap that our general fund has to pick up every year because we can't roll a negative fund balance in our special ed programming. It's got to get balanced. And so we use our general fund to balance that, and that's why you also see that unassigned fund balance continuing to move in a direction that we don't want to see it. Transportation is another example. We have roughly $7.5 million of expenses, and we collect about 3.4, and so we have a transportation cross subsidy in our district of about $4 million. And part of that is it's very difficult. We've, I think about 2014, a little bit before I got here, they went to a tiered transportation system to try to save some money, and they have done that, and that's the most effective way that we can run our transportation system, where we have the elementary tier, the high school tier, and the middle school tier, and we take the same bus drivers and we run those routes out rather than having to hire a bunch more drivers and do a bunch more routes to try to get everybody to school at the same time. So we've done some things there, and I would give our transportation department some credit in the last contract negotiations, as well as giving a shout out to our contractors. They were willing to reduce their cost per hour in the next contract, which is unheard of. So they were very good to us in terms of negotiating. I think they went from a $93 an hour contract to $90 an hour. So that will help address this gap that you see up here. But again, just to give you an example of what we're up against. And then software, everybody, you just heard, it's kind of fitting that you just had a software presentation here from Sheriff Empting, our district is no different in terms of our dependency on software and the expenses that have gone on with it. You can see how we spend about 3.6 million on software, and you can see how that is spent by department. So our teaching and learning department relies on software to the tune of about 2.4 million. Our media center about 48,000. Our communications department at 32. Technology a little over $500,000. Our special ed relies on it for about 144, and our activities roughly about 14, and then operations is around 384. So we've become pretty reliant on technology and the software costs that go with it. Where are we at currently in Moorhead? And I just want to share, there's two types of levies that voters can vote on. One is an operating levy, and the other is the capital projects levy. And we do currently have an operating levy that was renewed in 2016, and it was renewed at $223.66. And that started in taxes that were payable as of 2018. And that was then, because of the successful vote, was extended for 10 more years. Currently, in the last legislative session, there was a law passed that if we do not increase the $223.66, the board has the authority to renew it for another 10 years beyond 2028. So, but if we were to go out for $223.67, we'd have to go to the voters to get that increase approved. So if we don't do anything on the $223.66, the board has the authority to extend it beyond another 10 years. This levy at the $223.66 amount generates about 1.7 in annual revenue. And for districts our size, this is significantly less. And we'll have a couple graphs here to show you some comparable districts and where we sit in comparing them to us or us to them.
Mr. Chair. Thank you, Superintendent Luna. Can you quickly just, we understand, but for the public to differentiate the huge bond referendum that the community supported, how this differs?
Yeah.
Because I think that's, and maybe that's coming up, so I apologize, but just to.
It is, but I'll address it now. So that's a great question, because a lot of times there is confusion on what the comment is, we just supported you in 2019. And our public did support us in 2019. They also supported us in 2015. Those were bonds to address our building situation, to address the growing population. This levy is operating or put into place to help us with our operating costs to keep those buildings moving. So there's two different pots. You have buildings, and there's a couple slides ahead here. And basically our expression is bonds are for buildings and levies are for learning. So bonds will help us build the buildings. Levies will help us operate and do the learning portion of it in those buildings. So, good question. Capital projects levy is what we have on the ballot. Currently, we don't have one in place, and this levy has the potential to generate additional revenue for any capital type expenditures or technology type expenditures. Keep in mind, because of the situation we're in and the high costs and due to inflation, our general fund is picking up a lot of the overage that our capital projects, our operating capital formula does not pick up. So this would fill that gap and allow us to have a stop before we would go to the unassigned fund balance, which you see has taken a hit over the years because we have to cover that deficit. Any questions so far? I taught in Climax, Minnesota. I don't know if you guys know where that's at, for about 8 years. And I put kids to sleep with their eyes open for the first hour of every day. And I have a feeling I might be doing it again.
I have a question. How often does the state make a adjustment to the pupil rate?
Yeah, so your per pupil unit, that's a good question. Because of this last legislative session, there's finally a 2% adjustment on there that we can build. So those numbers that you saw earlier in the budget were with the assumption of a 2% increase on the formula per year. However, that 2% we don't necessarily budget for a lot or a large increase in our student population because that can fluctuate. We do have projections that we use, but we want to be conservative in the number of pupils we put into our budget because we don't want to overestimate that. But yes, the state has, due to the last legislative session, I think it's of 2021, did add a 2% inflationary factor in there that we can budget into the future, whereas before we were always putting zeros after the biennium because we didn't know. So,
Okay, thank you.
question. So where we compare to similar districts of our size, you can see there's two shades of color here. One is orange and one is green. And the ones that are in orange are the operating levies, and the ones that are in green are considered a capital projects levy. And districts that are of comparable size here, just to let you know, we selected districts here that range from 6,500 students all the way up to 8,300. And we selected the districts up to about 8,500, because our demographer who did a study last year projects that we'll grow another 1,000 students over the next 10 years. So we felt that to compare, we went from 6,500 to about 8,300 in terms of the comparison. So there's districts here that are a little bit bigger than us. There's districts here that are a little bit smaller than us, but they are comparable nonetheless. And so you can see on here that there's districts that have a small amount of orange, medium amount of orange, and a large amount of orange, as well as a little to nothing in terms of green and a large amount of green. And if the graph doesn't appeal to you in terms of bouncing out, the next slide will, because that has numbers on it, and it'll show you where we would be at comparable to these same districts in terms of actual numbers. So in this case, you see that we have 7165 as the number that we used, and we have an operating levy of $233.66 currently in place, but we don't have a capital projects levy, and our total then, when you combine the two, is still $223.66, and you can see where that is in terms of revenue with comparable districts. And then you can look at Burnsville as probably the closest number in terms of ADM down at the bottom, or 4 up from the bottom. They have a $2,200 student operating levy to our $223, and they also have a $525 capital projects for an additional $2,700 per student, but that generates them almost $20 million a year versus our 1.6. So when we compare ourselves to other districts on an operating, on a levy type situation as this, we are far below that district of that size, or the average of these comparable districts, which is about $1,800 per student. Just to show you that if our referendum were to be successful in November, you would see that we would just move the notch, or we'd move 4 down, so we wouldn't really be generating Burnsville type money or Edina type money. But for our community, we feel like, based on the survey, the amount that we're asking for is the amount that the community said that they would support. So that regard, you can see that the total would move to $823.80, still well below the average of $1,800, and smack us right between Farmington and Centennial as comparable districts.
Mr. Chair. Brandon, so I see the difference between that is about 4.3 million, just roughly. Mm-hmm. Does some of that, are you able to leverage some of that with state money? Or would that just all be money that would be collected from the district?
That would be all local collection, similar to the operating levy of $223.66.
Okay.
So, like Commissioner Jenny's question was, what's the difference between the two? This is the slide that we were going to use to compare the two. So we've never asked for an operating levy increase since that original one went in 2009 and was extended in 2018. But we have asked for buildings to address our growing student population. And we're coming back now to ask for the levy portion of it because we've added square footage and we've added some things for our student population, but not any dollars to operate. And now with where we're at and knowing that the high school is in a good place with inflation as well and getting that gap closed, now we want to come back and make sure that we can continue to operate them. So this is the difference between a building bond and an operating levy, and this is how we want to portray that. So why now? The big why behind it, like I stated a little bit earlier, was we know that from a building standpoint, we've been able to stabilize the high school, and we've gotten through that cost inflation. And because of our levy calendar and how we would the money, the way the revenue is levied, similar to way here at the county, if we didn't put this on the November ballot, and yes, we can run multiple elections to try to get this to pass, but if we didn't get it on the November ballot, we wouldn't see the revenue in fiscal year 26. The earliest we could see it would be fiscal year 27. So it was critical that we get it on the ballot in November and try to get that on the revenue for fiscal year 26. So now was the reason, November was the reason just for that, just because of how the levy cycles through. And if we missed this window, we would have to go a whole nother fiscal year without any enhancements to the revenue other than the additional 2%, which is dependent upon our student population as well. So the other thing is, this revenue would be used to support and help cover gaps that we talked about from that earlier slide at the very beginning. And then this funding, we believe, would just help stabilize the budget and help us turn the corner on our unassigned fund balance and continue to provide our programming for our students that they so desperately need. And we want to continue to provide for that without that having to take a hit, so to speak. So now is a critical component to that, and our levy cycle helped contribute to the why now piece. So when we talk about stewardship and tax impact, this $4.3 million on a home valued at $250,000 would be roughly $15 a month. We do have on our website the ability for you to go and put in your address, and it would kick out your specific tax impact based on your address. And then for the different property classifications, you can go there as well. So if you're an ag land owner, you can go in and type in under that category your address or your parcel number, and it would talk about what you would need to do there as well. And same thing if you were a business owner. And if this were to pass in November, this would be in place for 10 years, and this does not have the same impact that an operating levy does in terms of legislation, where this would, based on current law today, would have to be brought to the board again, or brought to the voter again in 10 years. This one does not have the same triggers that an operating levy does, where it can be extended by the board. The board does not have that authority to extend this by 10 years. This has to be extended by the vote of the people, unless something legislatively would change between now and that 10-year time.
No,
This would have to
so the
come
one
back.
that you're proposing now is limited without, and the board doesn't have the authority
The
to.
board does not have the authority to extend it as we are talking today.
So, Mr., if I can add, so going back to the difference between the capital levy and the operational levy, are you more restricted in what you can do with capital projects levy dollars versus operational levy dollars?
An operating levy is very open. There is no restrictions. Capital projects, you do have restrictions. But like we stated earlier, we do have about we can find about $8 million worth of capital expenditures that the budget is taking on right now.
Okay.
But we settled on the 4.3 because that's what the community told us they would support. We'll still have to balance that budget with some expenditure reductions as we move forward. And if there's some legislative things that change, maybe that helps the budget outlook, which would reduce any types of expenditure reductions we would need to do. But yeah, it is a little different. But in an election year, the ballot language was a little more detailed in terms of what you would use the dollars for. And everybody that I've talked to said in an election year, it's pretty important that you have a ballot that has a little bit more specific language on what you would use the revenue for.
Sure.
And so that was why the capital projects levy was selected. It would have the same impact, though, in terms of what it would do for the general fund, which would free up those dollars, which then are technically, at that point, unassigned and could go to anything we would need at that point.
So basically what's happening is you're using operational levy dollars to fund capital projects.
We're funding a lot of capital out of our operating levy right now, and technology expenses.
Other questions?
And just, so when you talk about technology, what's included there? What is,
So technology like the software that we just shared about the $3.8
Okay.
million, we buy devices for students, we buy devices for staff. Those have a cost as well.
sure, okay.
Our technology staff, it can be used for that as well. So all those things that also the capital projects levy allows us mechanisms to do things with our facilities that we can't really do with current buckets like long-term facility maintenance. It adds another dimension to our ability to maintain our facilities as well. But in the meantime, I would say for the first portion of this levy, for sure, we would need to use it to help us build back up our unassigned fund balance because of where it's at currently.
How long is your capital levy good for you? How many,
10 years.
10 years, yeah?
Worst case scenario, doesn't pass, what are we gonna lose?
Well, worst case scenario is we would
Your
have to-
reserves.
we don't, well, I would like to say that we could rely on our reserves, but we don't have any.
Yeah, well,
We're in that position to where we would have to make some reductions. Those scenarios are in the process of being built now. We did submit some things to the School Boards Association just the other day that if we were allowed, for instance, to move some restricted funds, like let's say from LTFM to cover some of our capital deficit, that might help reduce some of the reductions we'd have to make, because again, there's another stop we can make before it has to get to the general fund. So we're trying to do everything we can legislatively as well to support all the capital purchases we have to make without having to go into the general fund to pay that. And that would have an impact, but if that doesn't go through either, then I think we're looking at approximately $8 million in reductions to start building that back up.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Mojo?
Thank you. I know that Superintendent and I were part of a group, as some of you have been in the past, that lobbied at the Capitol for the needs of the area. And, you know, I'll highlight a little bit, well, I'm sure you were grateful for the 2% inflation. If all of the issues that we were dealing with were capped at 2%, I think we'd all be in a lot better situation. So I think it highlights the need for adjusting formulas to account for what real-world inflations likely are. And just looking at your widening gap first couple slides, you know, I think districts as well as counties and municipalities were hit with a lot of unfunded mandates. After a global pandemic, which we understand things changed and how we learned changed and accessed information changed, but the reality is you're kind of maintaining a pretty consistent gap in there, and it really has hit the gas pedal. So certainly we will continue to advocate for legislative changes to help ease those pains, because the District 152 is not the only district in the county that are facing these challenges. Certainly, I think your funding formulas that are state mandated are tricky, and I think you do the best to juggle it. I'll say from someone who lives in the country who has understood that there's some transportation gaps, we understand and we will embrace the fact that our high schooler will figure out the transportation to help ease that, so you don't have to drive 8 miles to only pick up one kid. I do appreciate you picking up the littles at 6:45, but I think that having you come here and raise the awareness of the challenges helps the community embrace that as well. I know there's been a lot of different changes to mitigate the funds in which you have. So thanks for coming here today, and I do think it will help with the knowledge of the community.
Commissioner Campbell.
Yeah, thank you. Were you done? Okay. Brandon, one of the things that I'm always interested in is, and we kind of had a discussion with our small cities this last week, and it's interesting to see what each entity is doing from a levy standpoint, because in a lot of instances, in all instances, Clay County shares constituencies with all school districts and all municipalities. And we always have an interest in who's doing what in what given year, because we like to incorporate that into our thinking to lessen the burden on all taxpayers as best we can. There needs to be a priority, at least in my mind, there needs to be a priority, what needs to supersede something else when you have limited dollars. But my question is, if this is approved in November, when would it first show up on the property taxes for individual? Would that be 2026?
Yeah, it would be, for us, it would be the next fiscal year, so it would be right away. So, like last night, for instance, we certified the levy at, I believe, like 2.89, or we certified the max, but at that run that it went through was about 2.88%. The run that they did on the 23rd had us all the way down to 1.09%. But if this were to pass, we would be adding that 4.3% on this year's levy.
Okay.
So it would
So it would
be.
show up then in
It would show up,
2025.
it would show up in this one, but for us, it's for, we call it 2024 payable 2025.
Sure.
So it's for us, it's in our fiscal year, it'll be in our fiscal year 26 budget. Because we'll levy
The
for
collections would start
that now.
in May of 2025 for the people who pay.
Correct.
Right.
That's-
That's what I.
His fiscal year 26 starts July of next summer.
Correct, yep,
Yeah.
Yep.
July to June. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions, comments? I moved here in '06. A 17-year-old daughter who attended Moorhead High for the last year, which was not rosy, but the comparison of the schools that she had been into, Moorhead schools, was remarkable. I was very pleased. And I was told at that point, there had just been the capital, passing of the capital budget to build. And that the school that they were gonna sustain the schools and meet the growth needs that the city had. Since then, I've not been disappointed. And again, speaking as somebody who doesn't have children in the school district now, there's some imperative things for a community to do. And when I'm at the Greater Fargo Moorhead EDC, there's a lot of crowing across the river. There's a lot of state support for them over there. But we have, one of the cards we always have in our hand is the fact that we've got such a remarkable school district. And that takes support. And if you don't have kids in the school, this is your future. And this is stabilizing the activities. We have a lot of young families in this community, and this stabilizes the environment for their children, which makes it a better community. When I was police chief, we saw that. Kids who were engaged in the schools had fewer problems. I regret that the police department isn't there now, but that's a whole nother discussion. But I think that the Moorhead School District has done an excellent job at meeting the needs, right up with the Career Academy and everything else. Certainly worth supporting. And I appreciate you coming forward and shedding some light and making having some transparency in what this ask is about and how it impacts things. And once again, we do this a lot in Clay County. You look at other counties, or in your case, districts throughout the state, people get a lot for their investment. And it's good that we scrutinize these things. It's also important to remember there are bills to pay for all of us in government, and the taxes need to be met. I think we're very aware of the property taxes, as Commissioner Campbell brings to our attention every year about this time, are pretty regressive. But even for those that don't have kids in the schools, there are benefits to maintain a quality school district, and I appreciate you doing so. Anybody else? Thank you, Superintendent.
Thank you, Brandon.
Okay. Public hearing.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to open the public hearing for the public input of our 5-year capital improvement plan.
Second motion.
Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, public hearing is open. Justin, take it away.
Good morning. So, like mentioned, at the public meeting, 5-year plan, we'll go through the project list kind of on a high level. It will show up on the TV map of the 5-year plan as well as each year's kind of detailed out.
Can you get close to your mic's not even on, I don't think.
Sorry. All right, so the first year in the 5-year plan is 2024, and as of last week, this construction season has been completed, all with the exception of the 11th Street underpass. I felt as though it was a very successful construction year with just over $6.6 million being spent. We did utilize both state aid regular, municipal, local funding, as well as wheelage tax and bridge bonding dollars. Highlights for the year include a 9.5-mile overlay on CASA 26 and a paving project on Broadway Street that was graded 2 years ago. Any questions overall on the 2024 year of construction?
Yeah, have we paid that 11th Street underpass? Has that money been paid yet, or?
We have paid our portion, and we have paid 1.5 million. That was requested as soon as the project
Okay, good.
was awarded. And there was an agreement for that project too, that we are capped at that 1.5.
Okay.
The second year of the 5-year plan is 2025. So the first project, project number 7, is a bridge replacement just south of Comstock. So recently that bridge was reduced to 8 tons. So we are really excited that we did receive bridge bonding for that project. The second project is one that we bid this spring that we did not get a bid on. I will be coming in the next week or two to start advertising that project. It's the bridge replacement on CASA 14, just southwest of Glendon, just west of the Glendon Pilar. So we did receive federal funding on that bridge, bond funding, and we do have some local state aid funding on there as well. And then the next project is one that we were able to receive some federal PROTECT funds on. So it is a CPR project, concrete pavement repair, which includes both a diamond grind and joint repair, and that is on CASA 11 from CASA 18 to 26. So this will just help increase the longevity of the concrete pavement. Similar, it's just something that you have to do to the concrete pavement. And the PROTECT funds are kind of, as you diamond grind and do joint repairs, it is shown that you reduce carbon, so that's why we were able to receive those funds. The next couple projects, and it'll be pretty consistent throughout the 5-year plan, is kind of the theme of it is pavement preservation. We do have an aging pavement infrastructure, so there are lots of mill and overlay projects. Project number 10 is on CASA 34 from Felton to CASA 11. 7 miles. And then we do have a small state aid street in the city of Dilworth, project number 11, CASA 45 that we will utilize some state aid municipal funding on. Project number 12 is one that we have been working on for quite a while. So it is the Urban Reconstructing Comstock. Diversion Authority is providing the funding for it. We are running the project. And then project number 13 is one that's been discussed throughout my budget cycle. It is a seal coat striping project, and you will notice I did in the top right-hand corner, Clay County construction allotment, I do have it at $725,000, utilizing $325,000 of that turn back payment that we had paid 20 years on. Guess any questions on 2025? It is a big construction year for us, just over $11.5 million.
Just, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Messina.
Thank you. I know throughout the years, I, being a rural commissioner, hear a lot of, well, there's so much happening in the western part of the county. Why aren't there things happening on the eastern part and blah, blah, blah. And I think there are valid concerns. I do want to highlight, though, that several of these very large projects that we have to do with commodities leaving the eastern part of the county and keeping roads safe for those commuters into the metro. And, if you've driven on 26 during the day, during gravel season, it's very dangerous. And I'm really excited about wrapping that up in the next couple of years. We've done a really great job of reallocating some things. And then I'll say even farther south on that bridge replacement, there were several farmers down there that were very verbal about that, needing to go back to the tonnage in which it was. So I'm really excited to see that. But I think I do want to highlight the need for preservation in a time when you have a big project like 26, and we've seen how much that costs to completely redo the road. I'm really hopeful that doing some unique preservation pieces might really help us with the longevity of that. So just my random comments, but thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Krabanoff?
Yeah, follow-up to that, if I may. So these preservation, because you made a comment about, I believe it was the one, the funds that you got received or a reduction
Yep.
for the use. And tell me a little more about that, what that entailed.
So project number 9, the diamond grind joint repair. So a couple of years ago, MnDOT came out with what's called Protect Funds, and there's a big, long list of projects that are eligible for it. One of them being, if it's called your IRI, but it's when MnDOT drives the road. If it showed that it's really rough or has chatter in it, you are eligible to apply for diamond grinding to help reduce that IRI. And in doing so, you're reducing the carbon footprint by reducing the amount of fuel that vehicles use and just wear and tear on vehicles.
Okay.
And then if you remember the past, luckily we didn't have it this year, but the past 2 years we've had some major blowouts on CASA 11 with pavement buckling. And part of the reason that that is happening is when this project, or when that road was first constructed, the joints weren't sealed. So those joints get full of gravel, salt, and they don't have the ability to open and close. So when it gets really hot, it has nowhere to go but pop.
Thank you. That's helpful.
All right, so we will move to 2026. So this is going to be another busy year with a couple of really exciting projects. Projects 14 and 15 are up by Georgetown. These are bridge replacements, box culverts, and then project number 16 is down just west of Barnesville. It is a bridge currently, will be replaced with a box culvert. We were able to receive federal funding on this in a joint application. Project number 17 is a mill and overlay on CASA 9. It's from Trunk Highway 10 to CASA 18. Project number 18 is one that we're really excited to wrap up. So it's CASA 26 from Trunk Highway 75 to the Red River. So that'll complete our CASA 26 project. There is a small piece that's not shown on the estimate there. We're kind of working through details on it with the diversion authority. There is some road raises that have to happen in that area. And until they're scoped, it wouldn't be any local funding being spent on it, but I didn't feel comfortable putting a number towards it. And then project number 19 is one that has been discussed quite a bit at this board and one that we are really excited about. It's the roundabout at CASA 12 and CASA 52. So we were able to receive HSIP funding and local road improvement funding for this project. Project number 20 is on the eastern end of the county, northeast part of the county. It goes from the east limits of Ulen to the east county line. This is one that we have every sugar beet meeting we go to. We do hear a lot about this, and one that does definitely needs some attention on it. And then project number 21 is, like I discussed previously, that's the seal coating striping project. Any questions on 2026?
There's not.
All right, 2027. So the first three projects shown are bridge replacements, 2 in Hagen Township and 1 in Flowing Township. One thing I will kind of mention, there is a footnote on the bottom of the 5-year plan on every sheet, but this is just kind of our best guess at when bridges will be eligible for funding. So as I do more of these 5-year plan presentations, you might see these bridges slide from year to year. That just means that they aren't deteriorating as fast as we thought, or they're not eligible for funding yet. Project number 25 is a mill and overlay on CASA 2. So this will kind of wrap up our project on CASA 2, which went from Barnesville all the way to the Red River. So we are waiting on this project until the southern embankment comes through, and then we'll be finishing the overlay from the southern embankment to the Red River. Project number 26, I know you've gotten asked about this one a lot, Frank. This is a mill and overlay in the city limits of Ulen. We will be working with the city as we start to scope this project just to ensure that they don't have any infrastructure that needs to be replaced as we're coming through. Project number 27 is CASA 21 from CASA 2 to CASA 10. So this is one that we're doing a lot of testing on it this summer, trying to scope it correctly. So there's 2 different sections, one with a gravel base, one without. So I do have it shown as a cold in place reclamation and a stabilized full depth reclamation just because of the different roadway designs on that. And then project number 28 is the seal coating and striping again. Any questions on 2027? All right, and then the final year of the 5-year plan is 2028. Project number 29 is one that has been discussed many different times at this board. I currently show North Broadway Bridge, and it is listed as unfunded. Project number 30 is a bridge replacement in Glendon Township. 31 and 32 are bridge replacements in Elmwood. Project number 33 is a mill and overlay on CASA 3 from CASA 18 to CASA 22. So this project also may move a year or two depending on, we are working with MetroCog and the city of Moorhead. Just the way the federal funding works now through the TMA, we're just trying to figure that process out. And then 34 and 35, I think is probably one of the more important projects on this 5-year plan as well. So it's CASA 11 from Trunk Highway 336 to Sabin. So it's 4.1 miles. So this is currently the only road in the county that's paved that does have 11-foot lanes. It's narrow shoulders, definitely a lot of safety concerns. And this project will be the focal point of future funding applications if the legislature does approve local road improvement funds in the future. It's definitely going to be what we apply for. And then project number 36 is just seal coating and striping again. Any questions on 2028 or overall on the 5-year plan?
Mr.
I
Campbell?
have a comment on 2028 and just some overall comments on the 5-year plan in general. And I guess my comment on project 29, the North Broadway Bridge replacement, from the Minnesota side, you know, our stance has always been on that any funding that would come from Minnesota for that would have to come out of state bridge bonding dollars.
Correct.
And, you know, so even though we're showing that project as a potential 28, as far as I know, they could choose a $50 million project on the North Dakota. But from whatever Minnesota elects to participate financially, it's going to be from the state of Minnesota. And there's not going to be any special taxing district or anything like that to cover that bridge. So that's just kind of more of a commentary than anything else. And then overall on the 5-year plan, I serving on the Highway Tracking Committee, there, Justin, you guys have done an awful lot of work on this. And I know Commissioner Mojo did mention about east versus west and those types of things. And something that's really important that when these projects are brought before Highway Tracking Committee, Frank and I serve on that. Neither one of us are engineers. That's the first thing we need to point out. And so we need to have the full faith and confidence in our engineers that they're bringing forward the projects that are a top priority to them. And a lot of what they do and include is, when you have limited dollars, you have to take a look at where is the most traffic going to. I mean, that's a key factor. So if you, on every one of those pages, you'll see the ADT, which is your, daily traffic numbers. And I mean, it's not like we're ignoring some of the areas either. We've got a couple of bridges on here where it's average of two cars a day, but we're spending $150,000 replacing a bridge. But it needs to be done, and a lot of that goes to the ag. Those might be important ag bridges, and so we need to deal with those. So overall, but then I just want to point out that Justin has also been very conservative with anticipation of what money is coming in, which is, I think, is very appropriate to do. But for example, in the 2024, if you look on the very top, the very first page, the state allotment from the state was $4,376,000. That's probably more likely to continue, but if you look at all the next pages moving forward, he's back at anticipating 3.9 million. So so we're trying to be somewhat safe in that regard in terms of our financial planning. So even under a reduced allotment, we're being able to cover these projects. Now, if those numbers continue to go up, then maybe we can fit something else in. But he's also, you got to remember, by the time you're looking at years 3, 4, and 5, there might be an inflationary factor, but that's just a guess at this point in time. We don't know what oil prices are going to be in 3 years, so all that is very, everything that's being done here is somewhat projected.
Absolutely.
But I just want to give hats off to you guys, and Frank and I, we've also attended these township meetings on all of the township contracts and things that we have there. And when we have those meetings, there's an awful lot of township officers present. And if anything, I think the most of them are very, very positive in the cooperation that's being done between the counties and the township roads as well. You got to remember, about half of our rural roads in this county are township roads. And so I think there's a really good blend that goes on there, and I think you're responsible for maintaining 27 of the townships?
27.
27 of the townships. So that's 1,600 miles of roads, roughly, that's being worked on or dealt with every year. So my hat's off to you guys for this presentation and the projects you've selected. You know better than I do on what those projects should be, so that's my commentary.
Motion.
Well, we're in public. Yeah, we can't do a motion.
And I will just make one comment kind of on that, projecting out future years and using that 3.9 million. So one thing that we do like to do, obviously in 2025, I'm showing a positive balance of 775,000. So I'm trying not to borrow against the allotment, but if all of a sudden projects come in cheaper than I'm anticipating, plus that we're at 4.4 million, I do like to bid early just in case there is one extra project from the following year that we can slide in. We also like to have one of those projects in the hopper that if that does present itself, we can be flexible and move it.
That's a very good point, and probably more for Paul, and years ago, when we did these 5-year plans, almost every year, we were borrowing almost a full year's allotment into the future to do these projects. And as you look now, I think it isn't until year 5 it's showing the potential for being $1 million, having over above the allotments.
Yep.
You know, so, but that is allowed by MnDOT to do that. But I think where we were able to, the last time we did, I don't know, maybe Commissioner Molejo can remember this, too, or Frank can remember this, but when we did a bonding bill for our projects, we incorporated 5 years worth of work into a bond, right?
Yep, and then you use the state aid allotment
And
each
and
year
we
to
use a
pay it
state aid
back.
allotment to pay that back. But I think that also really helped catch up, so that we didn't have to have such a high borrowing from year to year. So it really was beneficial. And it's something that once that 5-year bond is up, it should be looked at again as a potential to, and what that would do is would just speed up the ability to do some of these projects that we're talking about here today, that you reduce the risk of the inflationary cost.
When is the 5-year bond up?
We'd have to get that from Lori.
It's been up.
Oh, it's been
Yep,
up?
yep.
Okay.
I want to say either 19 or 20 was the last payment. I don't know for sure.
Time flies when you're having fun. All right. Anyway,
Commissioner Kravinoff.
Thank you for that. Justin, you know, as we talk about the 5-year plan, it's pretty much all on existing roads, maintenance and updating, that type of thing. Just going back to our city's meeting, you know, on Thursday, there was that conversation about, you know, and I'm thinking about communities that, as they grow, like Dilworth, Hawley, whatnot. And how do you look forward on anticipating traffic that may, as was mentioned out of Dilworth, going north, you know, to catch on 15th Avenue, to create that, give more access to the bridge to the, you know, to the Fargo side.
Yep.
How do you anticipate, how does that type thing ever work into a plan?
So
And thinking about Holly also on.
yeah, so on those particular roads, 15th, for example, is a township road, so we are a partner in the corridor study. So as part of the corridor study, traffic counts were taken, and you try to anticipate what future land use is gonna be, and that all goes into future projections. So that's not shown anywhere on here just because it's not a county road. As far as county roads go, so MnDOT does all of our traffic counts. Occasionally we'll have MetroCog do some, but we are given a projection factor through the state. Each county is given their own projection factor just based on growth and what traffic counts have done.
But you can transform a township road into a county road if you would be able to get state aid for it? Is that how that works, or do they never?
So we don't have any CASA miles in the bank, so we wouldn't be able to take over a township road and turn it into a CASA currently. There'd have to be some sort of turn back. And to be a CASA, it either has to meet on one end a CASA or a trunk highway, and on the other end has to meet a CASA or trunk highway.
So if that would ever exist, where they want to pave that, that would be on the township or more,
The city, yep.
okay, thank you.
So for example, like City of Dilworth, when they got that local road improvement grant for 7th, so we were the project sponsor just because the funding had to come through us and it had to be a state aid project, but the county itself, other than time, didn't have a financial contribution to it.
Okay, great, good to know, thank you.
Commissioner Mojo.
Thank you. I think making sure that we have representation at the MetroCog table with those transportation technical committees is really important as we look forward. And similar to how Commissioner Campbell reiterated to the school district, making sure that we're all aware of the projects that are happening so we can phase or tier things. You know, I will say a large reason for us needing to do a huge chunk of 26 was because of a large project that went in on the North Dakota side, and the amount of product that was coming out of Clay County pits, and the truck traffic led to deterioration at a rate that we just
I don't think could have anticipated that fell apart as fast as it did. And making sure that we do have projects in the coffer and are able to switch to a different one if different funding comes up. I look at the 52 roundabout. Do people love roundabouts? No. Did I almost get blasted driving into town at that intersection today? Absolutely. And so it's taking the public safety component, which is a huge part of this plan, the public safety concerns and what we're seeing trends with the sheriff's office calls and new projects coming in is how we can kind of quickly shift. I know MetroCog had a reduction of $30,000 for planning dollars for us this year, and while I get it, because there's not a lot of projects that they're planning on this side, I caution us a little bit about that, just because I think as a growing county next to a big metro area, we really do always have to have plans in the works for projects, but I think you've done a really good job of encapsulating where we think those growth areas and commuter high traffic volume areas are.
Other comments? Do I have a motion to move out of public hearing?
Move to close hearing.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the 5-year capital improvement plan for years 2024 through 2028.
I'll second.
Okay, have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you.
Both.
I do have one more
Yep,
item.
you're up next.
Yeah, so the second item I have is just the request approval to hire a maintenance worker due to an upcoming retirement. So this individual is going to be done probably in the next, once mowing is done, I think he's going to burn some vacation and be done once he gets, probably first part of the year, but just with how it has been trying to hire CDL drivers, I would like to move forward with requesting approval to hire this before winter.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you.
Good work on that plan.
Thank you.
Darren?
I might have a question for Darren or Justin before he leaves. I know we're talking about the referral plan, but that CDL plan, could we get a report on that at some point? How successful that's been in recruitment? I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot, but since you mentioned the CDL.
So it has actually been really good. So we've had 3 people come in without a CDL that have utilized the plan. So it's been a huge asset for our department.
Okay, great.
This current go-around, we did have some interviews yesterday. Luckily, we were able to find 2 people that did have
Okay.
Class A's, so.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Just going to that, so I can't recall, did we put an ending date to that, or is that just open-ended? With what,
I don't think we put an ending date.
no,
to
so
it,
I
but
think
we
it's,
probably
I think
wanna
it just,
relook at
it would continue until
Yeah.
our board would.
Yep.
But no, I've been very happy with it, and it's
Great.
been working well.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
While Justin's here, we had interviews for maintenance workers and motor grader operators. As you know, Justin came to the board earlier saying that we were having a lot of retirements in his department right before winter, which was never fun. But we interviewed, 5 people yesterday, and we got some great candidates. I think we're ready to make some offers probably pretty soon. So that I was very impressed with the people that we interviewed yesterday. And what's nice is that hopefully we can get them on board, and a couple of them had CDLs already. And I would have to say that there was several of them that one of the reasons they applied was they heard that Clay County was a great place to work, and especially the highway department. So that was always good to hear, that they were excited to come here because they'd heard that this is a great place to work. So thought I'd just put that out there since Justin's sitting next to me right now.
We
He gets so
appreciate
few kudos. I had to had to give him one while he was here. All right, well, thank you for having me to update you on the referral program. I was kind of amazed that when I looked at this and when we had it effective, I hadn't realized it was going on as long as it was. It became effective July 15th of 2022, so about 26 months. And you have an information sheet there, but I will read some of this for the citizens that may be watching. So part of our referral program, we have full-time and part-time. And what happens is we give an employee, current employee, $500 if they refer somebody to come and we hire them on. And then if that person remains here for 6 months, after 6 months, they get the $500, and then after 1 year, they get another $500. So I think the program has been extremely successful. We've really filled up our departments. We haven't had the huge problems of recruiting that some of these other counties and cities are having, and I think this is part of the reason why. So going through the stats on this, since July 15th of 2022, we have had 51 full-time and part-time employees recruited from our current employees. 12 of those were hired as variable hour and then moved on to become full-time and part-time. 46 of our employees have been recruiters, so we've had 46 people that have recruited people to come work for Clay County. Of those 51, 33 employees have been paid out the first payment, which totaled $13,750, and 21 employees have been paid out the second payment, and that totaled of $8,500. So the total payout so far in the last 26 months for the full-time and part-time employees has been $22,250. 7 have left employment so far, but that gives us about an 86.2% retention rate. So that's pretty good for sure. The variable hour, the employee that recruits a new employee, they get $250 after that new variable hour completes 400 hours of work. And then they get another $250 after that variable hour completes 800 hours of work. As you know, variable hours, they turn over a lot more than our full-time and part-time. But since July 15th, we have recruited 77 employees. 65 employees have been recruiters. Most of those have been in the juvenile detention facility. 22 employees have been paid out their first payment that equals $5,500. 10 employees have been paid out their second payment, and that equals $2,500 for a total payout date of $8,000 since the program has started. Of those 77, 31 have left employment, which turns out to be a 59.7% retention rate. As you know, variable hours turn over quite a bit. I gave a little bit of a breakdown of who is hiring those variable hours, those 77 employees. General revenue was 14, public health was 14, most of that would be in detox, 3 for solid waste, 1 for facilities, and 45 of those have been juvenile detention workers. So the total payout to date has been $30,250 for the referral program. This was taken to the PIC meeting last week, and it was recommended to bring it to the full board to continue this program into 2025. I did run some numbers. I used a new report just recently, and I ran the turnover rate for Clay County for 2023. And for our full-time and part-time employees, our turnover rate was 6.8%. And for our variable hour employees, it was 11.9%. So that's pretty good stats when you're looking at the workforce, the flexibility of the workforce that we have out there now. With that being said, I am opening it up to questions.
Questions for Darren? Commissioner Krabanoff?
Yes. Hey, Darren. Just wanted to ask, I was curious about the variable hour people. And I know they tend to be, especially for juvenile, a little younger group, you know, with the
Yep.
flexibility they like.
Correct.
Is there a trend with those variable hour people that eventually they try to get onto the county full-time?
I think there is. As you can see, there was, out of the 51 that were hired, 12 of those went from variable hour to full-time and part-time. So that's,
Oh, okay.
and
I missed
that's
that one.
always a nice
Okay.
stepping stone. In the juvenile detention center, we have a lot of employees that are still going to school. And then once they graduate, they may go to find another job somewhere, or if we have openings in juvenile detention for variable hour for full-time or part-time, they may bring them on as well. So we do use variable hours that come on to be full-time.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Campbell?
Yeah, since we put this into place, I know when we put it into place, there was our market conditions were really, it was difficult to, there was strong competition for just about every position that we'd have available. I'm not so sure that those market conditions are the same as when we put this into place, but there are still significant areas where there's an awful lot of competition that's out there. But I want to point out that I don't think there is a better advocate to go to work for a entity, public or private, than when your own employees are suggesting to others that they should come and work for you.
Totally.
I think that's a strong statement in itself. And I think earlier on, you mentioned something to Justin as he was walking out the door about the applicants. They heard that Clay County is a good place to work for.
Absolutely.
I think everything that we try to do represents that. And, and I think we're bringing in top quality people too at the same point in time that really help us to implement the services that our citizens want and expect from us. So I think this is an overall good plan. I think it's something that we have to continue to look at from a market standpoint based on demand. But as of right now, I see no reason why we'd want to change that.
Okay, thank you.
Frank?
At the meeting, we did discuss as far as continue the program, and we felt too that it's been successful. And since it is successful, why not continue it? I mean, even though it is proven to take care of what our shortage was. I mean, we don't have that shortage anymore. But the reason we don't is because of this program. So we too thought we should continue it, and I make a motion that we continue this program.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, a motion and a second. As Frank indicated at PIC, we discussed this at length. Even if the market improves to the point to where it's an add-on, this is bringing people in who already know employees and have already had a positive image put to them. And that helps with retention. That helps with people that stay long and move up the ranks and become supervisors. And those are things that we need. So again, PIC endorse this
Okay.
going forward. Any other comments or questions? If not, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you, Darren.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we're going to have committee reports, and we'll start with Commissioner Moselle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Last week I attended the Planning Commission meeting. There were a number of hearings that we went through. The first was a request for public input on our Clay County Land Development Code. We did not have any public speak on that, but certainly there's many opportunities to get in touch with the planning office if there's an issue that you wanted to highlight or provide your insight on. The second was a request for a conditional use permit in Park Township, a after-the-fact conditional use permit for an equine center. Certainly, the landowners were unaware that one was needed. They worked to get in compliance quickly, and that's a facility that offers equine therapy and horse camps for kiddos. So that did not have any negative public comment. We did approve that permit. The next was an after-the-fact permit in Spring Prairie Township for a home occupation saddlery tack business that did also get approved. I think it's important to note both of those prior ones did not offer any negative influence in regards to roads and access, and certainly fit within the rural character that we are hoping those businesses fill. So they both were approved. The next was a request for a platted subdivision in Elmwood Township. The Steenersons had worked on a change to the code, which we'd worked with them. So they're seeking a plat a one-lot commercial subdivision to fulfill that storage business. And that also was, we approved that, or that was a recommendation to this board for later. And then I attended the MetroCog meeting. They were short a quorum, so while we were all at the small cities meeting, I had called in to provide insight on that. They had a couple just draft amendments, and then tomorrow there is two meetings. One is at the Yumcumps from 11 to 1. The second is from 5 to 7 p.m. to provide insight on the Metro Transportation 2050 study. Certainly, if anyone has the opportunity to go there and provide input, that would be really helpful. Or if you have questions of MetroCog staff, certainly you can do that online as well. And then I had the opportunity to attend the small cities meeting with all of you. I always really look forward to that meeting. It's a great meeting to get the pulse of what's going on in our smaller communities in regards to open lots or buildings, so that we can help facilitate and work together on how best to fit the needs of our citizens in those communities. Thank you very much to the City of Glendon for hosting. It's always great to go out to those towns. And then yesterday I attended the Lakeland Mental Health Center board meeting in Detroit Lakes. We had the opportunity to hear from supervisors on all of the great programs happening at Lakeland there. We did approve a donation in the amount of almost $600 from a church to go to Fergus programs. We are having some issues in regards to, I think, one thing for Lakeland is their staffing pattern is really, or the success in regards to revenues is really contingent on having full staffing patterns. And so the clinics in which there are a lot of openings or difficulty filling schedules, we're seeing some negative pieces. The Moorhead Clinic is just doing great work in regards to psychiatry appointments, and their margins in August were almost $430,000. So for the entire organization to have a margin of $718,000 in August, and the Moorhead Clinic being what it was, it really speaks to that. So they're doing great work. I want to invite you. There will be an invitation forthcoming at the end of October for a ribbon cutting for the Moorhead Clinic. If you've been able to drive by there north of the Bellesley Boulevard area, they're really expanding, which speaks to the needs for services there. So great work for Donna and her team. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Commissioner Campbell.
Thank you. Thursday, the 19th, I attended the Cities County meeting, which I think all of us attended. It was a lot of good reports and it was good to hear from all the small cities that were present, and learning what their, again, going back to what we talked about when Brandon was here this morning, what their anticipated levies would be and how we incorporate that with what we do. And I just want to also give a thank you to all of our department heads who were there, that were able to either give reports or answer questions on whatever might pertain to their individual areas on behalf of the questions of the cities. Then yesterday I attended the kickoff meeting for the pre-design work on our non-secure / PRTF project that we've been talking about. There was an awful lot of discussions in terms of where might this go and how it would look, and you know, getting into on the PRTF side, how that facility might need to be remodeled, and then when we had an awful lot of conversation regarding the non-secure and trying to see if we can incorporate that to fall below a project that would require an awful lot of extra B3 stuff that really kind of raises the cost of projects. So we had some really good conversations there. It was a lengthy meeting, but we covered an awful lot. And at this point in time, because you know, this board has authorized Klein McCarthy to move forward with the proposed plan of a separate non-secure facility and the PRTF. I believe it's time for us to transition this over to the Finance Committee, partly because a lot of the discussions that we're talking about also include how we're going to pay for it. And by transitioning to the Finance Committee, that would then put Commissioner Mojo on there like it's been with the others. And what's extra important about that is, as we've had both Commissioner Mojo and Commissioner Krabenhoff really involved with the legislative ask that we're trying to do on this project. And I think it's important for at least one of those two to be at these meetings where we get into the weeds on all of these things, so that certainly as the advocates at the state level, they know all the underlying issues that are going on and talked about, so to be able to answer those questions. And I think we're ready to do that. And the Finance Committee now is, from that standpoint, I think we're going to have our last meeting on the detox building. That's going to be concluded, and I believe we have one or two more on the DMV, and those will be done. So that committee will be freed up, and it's going to probably be time for Lori to also have some involvement on this. So if it's appropriate this time, I would like to make a motion that this move to the Finance Committee for its meetings, there were a total of 6 meetings that were involved with Klein McCarthy as part of the contract. We had our first one yesterday, and there's 5 more, and those dates have been set. And so I think it's important to, if it's going to go to the Finance Committee, that Commissioner Mojo be aware of those dates and can plan for those. So I'd make a motion to move it to Finance Committee.
I'll second that, and I truly think that's a very good next step and appropriate at this time.
You have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Not all in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Pose same sign. Motion passes.
And then, Steve, I think if you were going to be sending out those calendar invites on those meetings, so then I think the makeup of that committee is slightly different. I know Lori is more involved with that too, I think so. Yeah. All the same people that we've had, we still want solutions, and those people. Okay. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Commissioner Gross.
Oh. The first meeting I had was the PIC committee, which we had part of our regular meeting today, so no use going over that stuff again. The last part of the meeting was the discussion of having a full-time assistant county administrator. You know, it's something that haven't talked about too much yet, but it's been in the, I mean, we've been riding along with Darren being the sort of the assistant administrator, county administrator, and I think it's time that we start looking at, it's not, I think, I mean, the committee thought that it was time to start looking at hiring an assistant county administrator and move ahead, anticipating, and say Darren's retirement, if that ever happens. I don't think he'll ever go, but, no, it's just something that we need probably in this county, on a regular basis, so it's just something that we're gonna start looking at, and then we're gonna put it, I don't know if we'll put it on the next agenda or not, but we're looking at it probably next year sometime, looking at getting that position in there. So that's just on the board, and those are my 2 meetings. I mean, I went to rural city meetings also.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Krabanoff.
Thank you. Last Tuesday, the Public Health Committee, which included staff and Commissioner Ebinger and I, we started looking at a review to do updates to the tobacco ordinance. And we'll keep looking at that and moving forward to anything that may need to come to the board at a later date. Also, I after that had the adult mental health annual meeting, or I'm sorry, monthly meeting. And it was, we didn't have a highlight this month, but we did have a great sharing of reports from our nonprofits that are all part of this LAC. And it was a healthy discussion among each other and networking. After that, I had the CAP LP Finance Committee. Overall, the budget's running as projected. Like many of these places, like CAP and HRA, that are kind of, there's federal funding and state funding. Budgets or grants come in at different times, so there's a little variations, but overall, the long-term projection looks on track. Wednesday, I had the Historical and Cultural Society Finance Committee, same way as CAP LP. In good order, it's in a range, and again, it's a lot to do when the grants come in and that have been approved when that money arises. On Thursday, had suicide and substance prevention. A big highlight on the Family Healthcare Community Center. The work they do throughout our area. I learned a lot. And how big they are, 5 locations, mobile dental unit out and about. And of course, we have the Clay County Dental Office here, and then yesterday out at the Moorhead Academy, a new clinic is being set up, and they had that grand opening there. So that was good information. Also, through the Minnesota Department of Health, and they received a substance misuse and prevention grant, which they've received the money for. This money will be utilized to expand a program that's being successful in the school districts called Sources of Strength. And they're going to take this money and try to develop the program throughout the community. And so with that, they'll start building a coalition for greater community outreach. And again, it just gives people those assets they need to have a better mental health, and also develop more information about where they can get help, and the referral network that goes along with suicide prevention and substance abuse. Then I had a meeting right after that, our HRA monthly meeting. A big thanks to this group for approving their levy. And so then, as with that, knowing where they're going ahead, working on their 2025 budget as they're moving ahead, knowing they have the funding to move forward to make the budget viable and balanced. Then that afternoon, I too was at that rural cities and county meeting we all had. It's been well discussed. And I too enjoy being with the group and hearing from the cities the different things they have going on. Right after that, I had the CAP LP Board of Directors meeting. Good news on that one. It was a lengthy meeting. We had an overall audit presentation. This would be a state audit, and we've had a deep dive federal audit earlier in the year. Anyway, everything looks very good, and overall, and next month we'll have the final. There's something repossession of some of the monies that they had in their budget. They're going to move those around. We'll approve that next month. Also during that meeting, we elected in 3 new board members. James Hammer, a consumer, Jean Briffke, consumer, and then Sheila Sested in the private sector. So that's the first, we have a 15-member board, and it's the first time it's full in quite some time. So it's good to be getting a full membership on our board. Also, of the 15, 3 of them are from Wilkin County, which is a goal we've been trying to achieve for quite a while, and it's good to see their presence again. I was elected chairman of the group. That'll be through 2026, and we have 2 candidates that will be doing a vote on for vice president, or vice chair, I should say. Okay, Friday, CAP LP, I attended CAP LP open house the next day at Bellesley location. There was quite a group there. Went from, I think it was 11 to 1 or something like that. Vendors were out there, full tour of their operations on Bellesley, of which they have a lot of administration and 3 classrooms. So they have 3 classrooms here at the service center, and then 3 classrooms down there at Bellesley, serving over 180 kids in the Head Start program. Then yesterday I had the Cascade Food Commission Steering Committee, again with budget cuts over in Fargo going on. There was a pretty big healthy cut taken out of Fargo Public Health. Kind of changes up a little bit. How it maybe affects some of the, in particular, one person who did leave, that was our co-chair to that. Anyway, our steering committee and food commission will continue on, and then we'll work with Fargo Public Health to keep them, Fargo Commission, keeping them to understand the benefits of having nutrition and the work that the Food Commission does in the public health arena. Also, we had a review of a couple of events we had lately had, such as the one at MJ Park and with the Food Forest, and I think that's, yeah. Oh, and then the last thing, we've been working on a strategic plan for about 6 months, and we'll have the final results of that for the next Cascade Food Commission meeting in November. That concludes my report.
Thank you. On the 24th, I attended the PIC committee meeting, which Commissioner Gross discussed. The committee decided to move forward. We had the referral program covered today. Committee decided to move forward with the full-time assistant county administrator issue. I think that it is necessary. I think it's an important thing that we need to discuss as a board, and like to see it on the agenda at the nearest opportunity, Steve. Following that, later that day, I attended with public health staff. We had a discussion on flavored tobacco ordinance, and that'll be brought forward to the whole board in the coming weeks. On the 19th, I attended the Greater Fargo Moorhead EDC meeting. There was a lot of discussion about Innovate 28. Cass County has $2.5 million to give for the project, as long as they can get matching funds on it. The goal, as I understand it, with private donations, they're still about $1.5 million out. They talked about the workforce program that the state of North Dakota is directing towards the EDC to work on. They have their Live in Fargo and Work in Fargo project component of that completed, and it looks like now they're going to have Raise Your Family in Fargo coming up. They also discussed a company culture program they have, and 11 companies involved in it. There are co-locations with 3 of those companies in Minnesota with John Deere, Sanford, and RDO. They also discussed an alumni recruitment to bring college students back into the community that they're working with NDSU on. And that completed that meeting. I attended the fall Rural Cities meeting. It's already been reported on, but as always, it's really good to be able to get in and hear how these communities are growing, and there's a lot of growth in Clay County, and to see how our staff responds to the needs that we can provide for the rural cities. So it was a good meeting. And then last night, into the night, I was at the Lake Agassiz Regional Library union negotiations, and we came up with a proposal for salary and contract changes that'll be voted on by the union membership. But it was a long night of interesting discourse and sharing of ideas. And that completes my report. Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Last Tuesday, I participated in the PIC program that's been covered. I would just note, when it comes to the assistant administrator piece, with the board's action of setting the preliminary levy, there's basically 2 ways that would be able to be paid for. Is one, we'd be looking at making a request to pay out of reserves for next year, or number 2, and what I'd like more time to do would be, we can't raise the levy, we can only lower it or adjust, and maybe between now and the end of the year, another option maybe is if we have retirements or funding that we're able to change or address in other areas.
Or revenues over expenditures.
Or revenues over expenditures that may address that. So the 17th, participated in the tobacco ordinance review. I think part of that is, as Commissioner Kravinoff mentioned, is just looking at our fee schedule as we move with cannabis and alcohol to have that hasn't been addressed since 2012. And so have something that's consistent across the board. We'll have more to that in the future. On the 18th, Troy Amundson and I presented at the Moorhead Business Association Let's Talk Business to talk a little bit about the county and specifically about our withdrawal management, and that was well received. I think we had a couple different examples this week of groups of people that just really didn't know, one, that we had the program, and 2, the complexity of the situations that people are facing that utilize that facility. And so that was it was great to be there. We appreciate the opportunity anytime we can be at Let's Talk Business. Had a meeting on cannabis registration, delegation discussion with Mr. Melton, Matt Jacobson, Kathy McKay, and Jason McCoy, in conjunction with a meeting coming up with our small cities. We didn't have a whole lot of discussion on that from our rural cities or questions from that standpoint, but wanted to be prepared. On the 18th, I met with Sheriff Empting on a series of issues. On the 19th, I met with Darren and Anna, also on a series of HR issues. On the 19th, met with Joe. If you're at the government center, the election process isn't just a few weeks. that our staff prepare. It's actually months of preparation. At our government center, we have various areas that get taken over, and Joe and the Auditor Treasurer staff worked in establishing a kind of an election room that better serves our staff. And so when you're over there, you might want to take a peek over there at that nice area. Participated on the 19th in the Fall Rural Cities. Thanks again to Glendon for hosting and for our staff in attending. On the 20th, participated in the Land Development Code meeting with Matt Jacobson. At our last Land Development Code meeting, we had discussions. We had, as was mentioned, we had quite a lengthy meeting. Towards the end, we ran through a few different things, and so one of the areas that our commissioners talked about was rural residential development and the importance of that. And so I think that Matt and I will probably be asking our two commissioners on that committee to have some additional discussion just to make sure that everything was fully covered and understood. 20th, participated in my weekly NACO leadership webinar meeting. Also participated in a regional MACA meeting in Fergus Falls. We talked about budgets, cannabis, impact of ESST, changes in legislation that we'll have to look at addressing our county policy again, and also the upcoming Paid Family Leave Act. And so lots of different things happening in our region. On 23rd, had a department head evaluation. That morning, I also had took the FM Extra on a tour of our withdrawal management and DMV facilities in preparation of the open house on the 1st. It was great to see the withdrawal management facility is really coming together. It's a facility that this community can be proud of. And again, with the FM Extra, just one of those examples of not understanding or knowing about the program and understanding all the services that are provided. And so we're continuing to work through some door strike issues at the withdrawal management that we're anticipating may cause some delays in the actual opening, but as far as the tour, we should be ready. The DMV is scheduled to open on the 21st. I will completely trust Gertz Construction in telling me that it's going to open then, but there's a lot of work to be done between now and then, but exciting on both fronts. And then yesterday I participated in the building committee meeting for the non-scared detention and PRTF. Just two notes. Again, Commissioner Mojo mentioned earlier the importance of MetroCog. There's a public input meeting tomorrow at the MCOM Center, both at 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. and 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. It's MetroCog 2050, which again, this public input will guide the transportation investments, not just in the Moorhead area, but also our region. So, and then just of note, on October 28th, there's going to be a Clay County Leaders Roundtable to discuss some legislative priorities. And so, if we have a great interest in that, we would have to have that one posted. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Brian? Darren? Sarah? Okay, we're going to take a break here. Okay, we're back in session. And at this time, I'd entertain a motion to go into closed session pursuant to Minnesota Statute 13D.05 Subdivision 3D.
Move to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor say aye. 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 Opposed, same sign. Okay, we'll be in closed session. Here we go. We're back in session. Go ahead.
Perfect. Thank you, Commissioners. I guess our request formally to the Commission today would be to request approval to form a team or a committee. I certainly would recommend myself, Rory, and anyone else. We would request a commissioner be on there as well to really look at the security compliance needs, not only specific to HIPAA, but for the county overall when it comes to our cybersecurity.
Mr. Chair, I would move that we move forward with adopting a committee as been recommended and that committee should be determined by Administrator Larson and Rory Schmitz and Quinn Jagger to do that. And my motion would also include our tech-savvy Commissioner, Commissioner Mojo, to serve on that committee on behalf of the board.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion is second. Further discussion?
I'm going to be really embarrassed when I have to go over to your office and get help changing my password after this meeting.
Well, that's different.
Any further discussion? Not all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other business come before the committee or commission? If not, we're adjourned.